On the polling day, I was called by voters in several polling centers who had been turned away by IEBC officials following failure by the KIMS kit to recognize their fingerprints. Yes. I discovered that despite a court ruling directing IEBC to provide a manual register to address the challenge, this was not the case in Nyandarua. As a result, most of my supporters did not exercise their democratic rights in all the 727 polling stations. I raised the complaints with IEBC about this irregularity, and I reiterated the same in press briefing held at 11:30 on 9th a.m. on 9th August on the elections day, and no action was taken by the IEBC. As a result, all those whose fingerprints were not recognized in the KIMS kit were not allowed to vote. And number two, our agents were denied entry in most of the polling stations on claims that they lacked the requisite authorization letters from the party, yet these were candidate agents and not party agents. And upon raising the complaints to IEBC, our agents were allowed access into the polling stations after 10 a.m., long after the voting process had commenced, and there are reports that ballot boxes were stuffed with ballots, especially the gubernatorial boxes. There are widespread discrepancies between the votes for the gubernatorial vis-a-vis those of the women representative. And I give an example. The governor got 239,464. The women representative, the votes were 194,320. And there is a difference of 45,144. So the question is, where did the extra 45,144 votes cast come from? How would somebody walk into a polling center or polling station and vote 45,144 and then just walk away without voting for anybody else? The issue of low voter turnout, very, very important. At the end of the voting day, the voter turnout was announced as 54% by IEBC and also corroborated by the KIMS kit. But upon counting of votes, 66% was registered as a voter turnout. So this discrepancy raises questions on the authenticity of the results, and hence the question, where did the 45,144 come from, who only voted for one seen on one side and not on the other side. And once we analyze the entirety of the votes across the various cadres or the various positions, up from the MCA to the president, I'm sure these numbers will be increasing, and this will be very, very important to critique. And number five, the fraud in vote tallying. A scrutiny of random tallying forms has revealed massive irregularities in the whole process. In several streams, I got equal number of votes. The same is replicated in several streams across the county, despite the alphabetical arrangement in the voting streams. So you'll find the votes are arranged according to alphabetics, but you score in all the streams you are getting 90, 90, 90, 90, or 70, 70, 70. Something very, 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 very mathematical. In any case, from the start of the voting in Nyandarua County, the pegging between myself and the one who was declared the winner, the margin was between 20 and 60 on average, and it continued from the beginning of the counting to the end. So it's like there was a robotic voting process where votes would be keying in, and the results would be 2060 up to the end. Then there was, of course, widespread voter bribery. That's number 6. Widespread bribery and compromise of IEBC officials. In most stations, our agents witnessed open bribery by voters and interference of the polls by the commission staff and by my competitor. And this is evidenced by the sacking of some staff of IEBC, which took place after irreparable damage. So there are reports that some voters were given more than one set of ballot papers. And this explains why these numbers are not adding up. Lastly, the number 8, tallying irregularities. Agents were compromised, and hence the actual number of votes for gubernatorial were not recorded. So due to these glaring irregularities, I demand that all the KIMS kit and the whole electoral process be subjected to a forensic audit, and so that all these discrepancies, which amount to criminal enterprise, elections are matters of a national interest, and they constitute national security issues and interests, and nobody should be allowed to bring it to introduce criminality in a voting process as we have witnessed. The outcome of the elections is as a result of massive irregularities of the voting process, and this discredits the outcome of the results. To blame, I want to urge Nyandarua people. I know people are queuing and meeting and blaming each other. You are the ones who voted this way or that way. I would like to alert our people that there was a criminal enterprise operating in the county, and they should stop suspecting each other or blaming institutions or other people's. Let's demand a proper forensic audit, and I therefore want to urge supporters to remain calm as we plan the next course of action within the rule of law. So we are urging for peace. We are urging that people tolerate each other. We do not want to see escalations of violence at all. We believe in the rule of law. So whatever action we take, we should be able to operate within the law. And I want to urge peace, and that people should not blame each other, as I have said. Look at the differences between what was attained by say the presidential candidate, one presidential candidate in the county. The difference is almost over 900,000 votes. In Nyandarua County, you have seen already more than 45,000 just for women rep alone. So the question is, and as I've said, most of the challenges that we find in this county, in Nakuru, in Laikipia, because we have compare notes, most of these challenges appear to be duplicative. So it looks like there was a very seamless criminal enterprise operating in the block, and the aim was to get votes for one particular side, one particular party, and I think this is not acceptable. So all ballot papers are accountable documents. So if they are not cast in the respective, say in the case of women rep, if they are not cast in the the box of the women rep, then they must be in the spoiled votes. They cannot be hanging somewhere or flying like a kite in Nyandarua County or across the county. So this is what we are demanding, and I want to urge the Azimio Secretariat to demand for forensic audit, and not to take it lying down. Of course, I'm sure there will be people confessing on what happened. Already we can see indications from Kiambu, from Nyandarua, from Nakuru, from across the block. These irregularities that I'm calling a criminal enterprise, well calculated criminal enterprise, to make sure that certain candidate wins or candidates win the election without following the due process, and thus undermining the will of the people of the county. Yes, we are still analyzing. We have an expert team of legal experts and operational experts, and also political experts, analysts. We are working very closely with the Azimio Secretariat to make sure that all the data that appertains to the KIMS system is evaluated properly. The votes cast per person, the votes spoiled, the allegations of votes that were introduced outside the normal voting system. So give us time to investigate, and then we'll determine as a county, and also I'm sure with Azimio we'll agree on how to approach this system. But of course, as a governor, I'll be complaining as a governor or go to court if I think that the evidence that accrue is weighty enough to warrant a legal process.
It's okay.
Are we ready? Are we ready?
Are we live? But a few minutes. Few minutes, eh? Hakutakuwa na maswali, tunataka tu kutoa statement tumalize. Hata swali moja.
Ama ni jacket inaharibu. You can go ahead. On my right, and our campaign manager, Mr. John Degwa, who is on the left, and the team, and our team. Our county.